Next, we switch back to the slides and we describe the fitMedia function. And by first, this is the reason this section is going to be slide heavy is because we want to get the concepts first. We think that's really important to just ground the students in the fundamentals and give them a little bit of terminology so that later on, if they want to study more of the BreakBeatCode curriculum or really any other computer science curriculum, they'll have some of these core terms. That terminology will give them what we call technical courage. And by that, we mean the confidence, the courage to keep on pushing instead of having the attitude of, I don't know this, I don't understand this. It's more like, I don't understand this yet. And they will, with a little bit of this terminology, they can start to explore further with more ease and confidence. So this first concept are functions. So we often have a call and response. So we say, everyone say functions. Get the students to say functions. If their energy is low, I often ask them to do it 2 or 3 times. To really, and repeating that, we find a lot of students may have different modalities. And one of them may be that they learn from listening, especially to their own voice, we find. That's why we often see that in classrooms, the call and response technique. And so we say functions. Functions are reusable code that receives input and takes an action. So reusable code that receives input and takes an action. Those of you who have not had any experience with coding before, you might not actually understand these at first, but you will by the end of the day. The easiest way to think about this is to think about functions in real life. A good example of a function in real life is ordering a pizza. And by the way, another word for function is algorithm. And we get the students to say algorithm. Algorithm, simply put, is a set of instructions that can be repeated in some sort of sequence. And so a great example is ordering a pizza. And let's think of a pizza where you're going to pick it up. And all you need to give them to order a pizza is your name, your phone number, the size of pizza, and let's say the style of the pizza. So Alicia Keys could say, hi, my name is Alicia Keys. Here's my phone number. My order is a large pizza, Hawaiian style. And those 4 inputs, name, phone number, size of pizza, and toppings, I give that over to this order pizza function, which is really just a person answering the phone. They might be typing something into some sort of form or writing it down. And as long as I give them that information, they'll take that away and they'll execute the order. We'll have that receipt automatically printed back at the restaurant, and then someone's going to make my pizza. I don't need to know anything about the process behind the scenes. I don't need to know the name of the chef. I don't need to know the type of oven that they have. I don't need to know the temperature of it. I don't need to know any of those details. I just need to give them my information, name, phone number, size of pizza, style of pizza in this case, and I'll get what I want. Now let's think about this behind the scenes though, backing up. And let's say instead of actually calling, Alicia Keys picked up her Google Android phone, and assuming she has one, and he says, okay, Google, please send me an order to my favorite pizza restaurant. My name is Alicia Keys. My number is 555-1212. I want a large pizza Hawaiian style. So I ask the students, how do you think that works behind the scenes? Let's think about this, and I'll pause. And you might have some students that'll jump in and say, well, first, there's got to be some sort of voice recognition. At this point, though, there might be a little bit of silence in the classroom, depending on who you're speaking to and their comfort and maybe their energy that day. First, let's break this down into a couple different problems. One is there's just this generic speech to text problem. So in other words, being able to have someone speaking into a phone and then out comes some text. But once you have that text, then you need to take these different elements out of it: name, phone number, size of pizza, style of pizza, and then you need to get that information passed over to the restaurant. That means that you need a way to take that information and pass it to some other system, in this case, the order management system, so you can get your pizza. Then I encourage everyone to say, well, let's think of yourself as now the engineer designing this function. So you're going to write a bunch of code that ultimately is going to be called a certain name. Let's call it the order pizza function. And there's all the instructions how to pass that information over. But you want to be able to repeat that instruction. And so you might actually start by just designing this thing in such a way so it's got a function name. It's called order pizza. And this is what it probably would look like if they're writing in Python. And it's going to be followed by parentheses and then the types of input. So you got the function name, order pizza, in parentheses, separated by commas are what we call the parameters. We get everyone to say parameters. So everyone repeat after me, parameters, parameters. Again, there's a little bit of jargon, a little bit of terminology that will help you later on as you try to do further studies in coding and computer science. Parameters are actually really simple. It's the type of information the function needs. So it's the name, phone number, size of pizza, and type of pizza, separated by commas. And so in this process, Google Assistant's going to translate this information and pick out these different words, and it's going to feed it into this function called order pizza that will then pass that information to the restaurant, and it's reusable because this guy, Marcus Walker, can do the same thing. He can use the Android Assistant, give him this information. That's going to ultimately be passed down into this thing called order pizza, which translates that into an order back to the restaurant. At this point, maybe the students are not 100% comfortable with functions if they're seeing this for the first time, but we're just grounding them in some fundamentals before we get into the specifics of EarSketch. Because at this point, we're going to show them how this works, and pretty quickly, we're going to get them into writing their own code, and then we're going to do a recap. So, fitMedia. fitMedia is what we call built-in function in EarSketch. In other words, someone on the EarSketch team designed a function called fitMedia to take a sound, any sound you choose, to place it on a certain track, which we'll describe. But think of it as different rows or train tracks having sounds playing side by side, as we saw in the demo. And then you need to tell it where to start and where to end. And it's going to start and end on specific measures. What you'll notice is that tracks are integers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. There are an unlimited number of tracks you can put in there. They're integers, so you can't say it's track 2.3. It's got to be track 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, start and end, those can be floats like 2.0, 3.3, etc. We'll describe what measures are in a moment. Okay, so now we get them into EarSketch. This is the point where I switch over into live coding in EarSketch. And I'll start that by saying, click here to create a new script. At this point, they should see that they have a username up here. Okay, their username, that means they're logged in properly. We say click here to create a new script. And I always tell the students, use your stage name. Mine's BreakBeatCode. Maybe the date. In my case, it's 12/17. And then maybe first song, for example, or whatever they want to name their song. You'll notice up here, it has some sort of standard code that's just like included in the template. We say, go ahead and write the code below this. And we'll say, first thing we want you to do. And I'll zoom in quite often. What I like to be conscious of is that depending on the configuration of your class and whether a student has corrective lenses or the right prescription, you might have some students that might struggle to see the screen. So we often zoom in like this, and I'll go sound equals. So everyone just type in sound equals. I give them a moment to do that. And again, you do this under set tempo. It doesn't have to be a space right there, by the way. But if you have a space, it's easier to read. And then we're just going to choose one of these sounds that you like. Have your cursor next to the equal sign. And I like this one. I'm going to put that in here. I'm going to redo that so you can see that again. Just click that blue button, and that's the paste to the code editor button. And you'll notice if you've done that correctly, you should see a little green play button right there. If you do it incorrectly, it might mean maybe you clicked it twice by accident, which is the easiest thing to do is just delete the whole thing and start again. Or they might have accidentally like deleted part of the sound file name. And again, you can see it if you got the green play button, you know that you pasted it in properly. On the next line, type track equals 1, start equals 1, end equals 20. And again, we'll just pause here, let the students catch up. And then I might flip back to the slides and just ask everyone to say, after me, variables. Everyone will say variables. These different words, sound, track, start, and end, that I wrote into my script, those are variable names. Variables are like a name tag, and I ask everyone to repeat after me. Variables are like a name tag. Sometimes I might make it sound more like a music lyric, like variables, variables. It's like a name tag. Get the students to repeat back. And then I'll ask, what are variables? Name tags. They're simply name tags. They're just short names for some sort of value. And so sound, track, start, and end, I just created these different names to make it really easy for me to read my code and update it. The next line of code I'm going to write, this is where I might switch back to the code editor, like this. Again, I'll go fitMedia, F-I-T, capital M for media. So think fit, like I'm fitting this sound into the track. I'm just placing it, and I might make it shorter or longer. And media just being, in this case, the sound. And in parentheses, sound, comma, track, comma, start, comma, end. And then I'm going to hit the run button. And then we'll ask students to hit play. It'll sound like this for me. So notice it started on 1. It's on track 1. It's ending on 20. And these sounds are repeating back to back. And that's what fitMedia does. It says, if you give me a sound, just like ordering a pizza, if you tell me what sound you want to play, on what track to play it, where to start, where to stop, I'll follow your instructions. I'll take those types of information that you want, those actual values, and I'll play your track. But how did it know what to play? Well, it just knows that sound is equal to the sound, track is equal to 1, start is equal to 1, and end is equal to 20. And I encourage students to, maybe they want to play around with the way where this stops and starts. Maybe they want to start it instead on 16. Like that. And you can see it's now playing on 6. It's now ending on 16. And so for some students, they might see this and then they might just go off on their own. And if that's what they want to do, where they just start coding away and just kind of, maybe they already have some coding background, or maybe they just, something clicked for them and they feel like, okay, no, I think I got this. I'm just going to keep on experimenting. We strongly encourage that. At this point, however, we also want to make sure that we create a low floor, a high ceiling, and a wide wall. Low floor meaning make sure it's easy for every single student to participate with confidence. High ceiling, allow them to go as far as they want to go. They could jump into the curriculum and just figure out stuff there. and get as creative as they want to be. They can just start arranging the tracks in all sorts of interesting ways. Maybe they want to really explore EarSketch and find out what it can do. And we just really strongly encourage that if they feel comfortable doing that. We also assume, and often I frame this as the way I learn, and I use myself as an example because I would say that I would like to learn from every different possible angle I can before I feel confident with material. Personally, I want to learn by saying something out loud. I want to learn by doing. I often learn by doing some sort of movement. Often, if I'm either standing up or physically moving in space in some way, I also learn from the music itself. That actually really helps me a lot. And similar to the students in the room, they're going to have different learning modalities or preferences that will work better for them than it might work for others. And so we try to do our best to teach all those different ways of learning. So we go back to the slides, and this will allow us to just walk through this one by one, line by line. And the Python interpreter reads instructions just the same way you might have a trainee who is working at the restaurant for the first time, and the chef is telling them how to make a pizza. They're going to say, step one, go to the fridge. And then they go over to the fridge, open the fridge door. They open the fridge door, get out the dough. They grab the dough, close the fridge door, close the fridge door, walk over back to the table. They walk over back to the table, start to knead the dough. And they describe how to do that step by step. Same thing here. When you click the run button, EarSketch will walk through the code line by line, and I'll read it to say, like, okay, when you say sound equals, you're creating a variable in memory. And when we think of the memory, the computer's memory, you can think of it as a table, in this case, with a column that has the variable names. And the next column is the values assigned to those variables. So sound with common love drum beat 1, track with 1 as the value, start with 1 as the value, and end with 20 as the value. And then when you have fitMedia soundtrack start end, it's basically swapping out those values. So it'll actually say, you mean I want to play common love drum beat on track 1, starting on measure 1, ending on measure 20. And it's going to be played in a loop. And then you can click the play button. And this is where we have the opportunity to firmly establish that low floor to make it really easy for students to get going. And you can go to breakbeatco.d/1a. And when you go there, you will land on a Google Doc that doesn't require a login. We're just going to we'll go Control A, Control C on a Chromebook or a Windows device, and it would be Command A, Command C to select all, and then copy it on a Mac. We'll go back into EarSketch. And if students already have their own working code, we encourage them to keep on playing around with it. For the students, maybe they ran into some errors and they just didn't feel like they grasped the concept, or they just wanted a little bit of help. We tell them, like, just go ahead and create a example 1A and a new script. We tell them just delete all of this code and then paste in the code that copied from that example script. And it'll look like this. And click the run button. So now they have their own sample code. So now all the coding that they need to do at this point, for those students who want to start with an example, they can delete this. And then let's say they just delete that sound. They choose something else that they like. Maybe this bass line, this drum beat. If they like that, they can go in there. All they had to delete was that sound file name. They had to go into, choose another sound, click that blue button, that paste to editor button we saw right here. And they are coding in the same way that any student has typed all the code. They've coded just as much as the other students. And a lot of students will start off, a lot of engineers will start off with a lot of copying and pasting at the beginning, and they'll continue to copy and paste for the rest of their career. Copy and paste is a totally valid way to code. So no matter how you got there, whether you typed it all out yourself or you took from this example, everyone in the room right now is an artist engineer. Some students will look at me a little bit quizzically when I say that, but then I'll say, like, how many songs do you need to create before you are an artist? And someone will definitely say one. Exactly. One song. How many different scripts do you need to write to become an engineer? And they'll say one. Exactly. At this point, it's up to you whether you want to keep going, how far you want to go into this, but everyone in here is an artist engineer. Are you going to be an amazing artist engineer at this point? Maybe not. But think about this. With just a little bit of coding, with little or no experience, you've now placed your first sound on your first track. And now with a little bit more coding, you're going to put in a few more tracks, and this song is going to start to sound pretty interesting.